Buddha is not God, nor a God, nor does he issue from God, so he is not existent in simple divine terms. And yet the question addressed by this book is one that has exercised the minds of Buddhists from the time the Buddha appeared right up to the present day. In the end, it is a koan, that is to say, it cannot be answered in its own terms. It requires us to change ourselves before we can answer it. One of the most mysterious titles in the modern publishing world is Who's Who. It is, of course, a sort of identity parade of significant figures in public life, but it is plainly evident that this compendium does not, in fact, set out to tell us who anybody is in a way that makes much sense to us today. Generally speaking, we are nowadays much less comfortable with setting out our identity in this fashion than people were in the past. Who we are and what is our purpose in life are questions which people in the past had settled for them. Most people had neither the time nor the energy to dispute the answers given to them, but today our sure if limited sense of identity, as well as the closed systems of belief which secure it, are slipping away at all levels of society. We do question things, we don't want pat answers. It is the Buddha's direct confrontation of the existential crisis faced by the individual which makes him easily accessible to contemporary modes of thought. An attitude of doubt, experimentation, and questioning marks the whole of the Buddha's career before he became enlightened, and his subsequent teaching at no point cuts short the spiritual quest with premature conceptual resolutions, divine revelation, or doctrinal imperatives. The only difference between the Buddha's quest and our own is that he had to find his way without clues or guidance. In asking who is the Buddha, we are simply undertaking the Buddha's interrogation of reality for ourselves. The quest remains our own because this interrogation of reality is also an interrogation of ourselves at the deepest level. It will be clear by now that the question, who is the Buddha, is not going to receive in this book a reply that bears any relation to a who's who entry, or even to a spiritual biography. The author's concern in the following pages is to lay bare, so far as this is possible, the roots of the Buddha's essential identity as an enlightened human being. The opening chapter is in some ways the most ambitious in the book. Within a few pages, it sets out a coherent overview of the Buddhist perspective on the universe, within which the Buddha can be recognized for who he is. That is to say, it provides a window for Westerners to look through the Buddhist window on the universe. At the same time, Sangharakshita scrupulously avoids the danger of confusing one window for the other. The idea, for example, that Buddhism is a scientific religion is a plausible and attractive one for many people. There are facets to both disciplines, in terms of attitude and procedures, that make it seem as if the Buddha was a kind of scientist, applying scientific method to the spiritual life. But as Sangharakshita explains, such a synthesis misrepresents science and sells Buddhism short. In the Buddha's early life, before he became the Buddha, we gain an acquaintance with some of the elements that made up his character. We get to know the circumstances Prince Siddhartha grew up in, and the use he made of those circumstances to engineer the most ambitious project of which a human being is capable. This period in his life, the way to enlightenment, is a poetic mix of legend and real human touches. One may find his background is quite a curious one for the founder of the kind of religion that people usually consider Buddhism to be. Because it concerns a human being like ourselves before he became the Buddha, his early life is a fertile source of inspiration and guidance for us. But the teachings that Sangharakshita uncovers from this ancient story are almost shockingly down to earth. One could say that he brings the issues that Siddhartha faced into our own living room.